try to imagine what it would be like to feel scared if the person working in the care home where you visit your mum, or the person working in the supermarket where you do your shopping, if their identity made you angry or scared. I always remember, you would expect me at this point to refer to a caller from a few years ago who explained in some detail why they'd voted to leave the European Union because there were too many brown faces in their local Tesco. I often think of him. I often wonder how he's doing at the moment with the changing face of the UK, of Brexit Britain. And what would that be like? What would that be like? For me, it would be like having a problem with someone whose hair was ginger or who had freckles. Or if we made everybody wear a badge denoting what their star sign was, being absolutely fine with the Pisces, putting your shopping through the till, but furious if it was a Capricorn. I mean, it's meaningless in the great scheme of things, but it's so effective, isn't it? People can be so easily turned into or turned towards profound unpleasantness. And who wins? Who benefits from this? You develop a problem with your neighbours because some of them were born somewhere else. Who wins? You don't win, they don't win. Who wins? Well, arguably the people who have done a little bit more to create the problems from which you are currently suffering. The people who are trying to blame their own missteps and incompetences on tofu-eating woke-hurrah, they win. So who would you expect to lead an attack upon immigration today? Obviously, the thickest 25 Tory MPs in Parliament. It's like night following day. Show me a thick Tory with fears about losing their seat in the next election, and I'll show you someone reaching for the immigration scaremongering lever like a rat up a drain pipe. Goes with the territory. Maybe I'm being unfair. Maybe they're not actually all thick. Maybe some of them are just preternaturally unpleasant. But it's such an odd thing to be doing now. We became the first country in history to impose economic sanctions on itself because people had been persuaded that too many people were coming here from the European continent. So they stopped coming. We've tried to fill some of the gaps, but we're failing, which is why there are currently 165,000 vacancies in the care sector. Would you come on a 3-year or a 5-year visa, knowing that if you wanted to put down roots, start a family, put children in school, anything like that, you'd have the rug ripped from beneath your feet 3 or 5 years down the line, treating human beings like a sort of negotiable commodity as opposed to freedom of movement, which allows people to do what they please, where they please, spend their money on what they want, apply for jobs where they want. It's just bizarre that they're still doing it. 12-point plan to cut net migration by about 400,000 before the next election. Well, let's hope that Vladimir Putin doesn't invade anywhere else, because, of course, one of the reasons why our numbers are high net at the moment is because of the number of Ukrainians that have made their way here. And hearing Gullis talk about the economically inactive, I suppose I loosely describe him as cerebrally inactive, but these are not people sitting there going, oh, I can't be bothered to go to work today. They're people with health conditions, people with issues, people with lifestyle choices in some cases, people who've taken early retirement, people who've got their pot and they've decided to step back from the fray, people who recalibrated their own priorities during lockdown. But I don't want to talk about them, and I don't want to really talk about these flotsam and jetsam of the political class trying even now, 13 years in power, with immigration having propelled us over the Brexit cliff edge and pushed people like Boris Johnson into Parliament. Even now, they say, we've just got to be nastier. We've just got to be nastier and everything will be fine. I want to know what it's like when you think that they're talking about you. Another morning where you turn on your radio and they're talking about not wanting you to be here. Imagine being on the bus this morning with your earphones in, listening to a conversation, on your bus, on the way to a shift, on your way home. Let's really go for the Technicolor picture here. Or you're on your way home from a shift in a care home. You've just had 12 hours of back-breakingly hard work. The home is understaffed. You're doing more work than you should be doing. Some of the patients are in a right old state. The heat makes everything worse. You haven't got air conditioning. Some of them practically need hosing down. In some cases, literally. And you're on your way home on the bus. Earphone in, radio on. 25 Tory MPs don't want any more foreigners coming here to work in care homes. How's that going to make you feel? How is that going to make you feel? And of course, it's not just care homes. We might be talking about so-called low-skilled, although frankly, Jonathan Gullis and 30p Lee Anderson describing anybody else as low-skilled is probably the definition, the closest you'll ever come to a pure definition of irony. It's not just low-skilled, is it? Because that's another needle, another very movable, a perforated line. Low-skilled today, high-skilled tomorrow, no-skilled on Tuesday. What does it even mean? I couldn't put a shift in picking fruit, could you? I couldn't even begin to get close to the kind of numbers that you'd need to be doing to hang on to your job or to be of use to the farmer. I don't think I could do a shift in a care home. I could probably learn that. I'd be physically capable of it, but I don't know whether I'd be emotionally suitable to that sort of work. Low-skilled, no-skilled. And then Anderson and Gullis come along, casting aspersions on the people currently doing the work for the crime of having been born somewhere else. How does it make you feel? Okay. A couple of you have asked me to check that there are actually 12 points in this plan. I think there are. Tightening restrictions on student visas to stop graduates staying in the UK for longer than 2 years without a job offer. How many people are in that category at the moment? You'd need to tell me that before I could have a view on it. Capping the number of refugees legally accepted for resettlement. Good God. Good God. Imagine if we'd done that. Well, actually, we kind of did do that in the 1930s and the 1940s, but this lot want to go back to that. Doesn't matter where you're fleeing from, doesn't matter what you're running away from. You can't come here. You're not on the list. You're not coming in. 20,000. That would include, of course, Ukrainians in recent years. A 5% cap on the amount of social housing that councils can give to non-UK nationals doesn't even mean anything. Build more social housing. Causing resentment by allocation, according to need, as opposed to ethnicity or demographics. It's incredible. And then if you are working in the care sector for close to minimum wage, this lot want to charge you £2,700 a year just to use the NHS. In fact, if you're working in the NHS on close to minimum wage, this lot want you to pay £2,700 to be treated by your colleagues while they continue to get it for free. So let's just remember why we have to talk about this stuff. Because look, come here, I'd much rather not. That it is one of the, why are we giving them the oxygen of attack? The answer is you. The answer is if we don't remind ourselves what real people are and look like and do, they can continue to do what they did in the run-up to Brexit and portray these people as unreal. These faceless mobs, the characters in Daily Mail stories or Nigel Farage's disgusting Nazi-themed posters. The real people that are currently looking after your mum. The real people that are currently making sure there is some food on the shelves in our supermarkets. The real people who are currently dealing with all of the things that the rest of us are dealing with a fat side order of hatred and demonisation. As an immigrant, and I wish I had a better word. I can't keep saying, as somebody who was born somewhere. Yes, I can. Of course I can. As somebody who was born somewhere else, how do you feel when you hear Jonathan Gullis, 30p Lee, and the rest of them explaining why you should not be here at all? 0345 6060 973. And if you would like this morning to make a case for being of more use to British society than Jonathan Gullis or 30p Lee Anderson, then this is the place to do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think it would be very hard. I don't think it would be very hard for you to explain why you believe your contribution to British society is greater than that of Jonathan Gullis and 30p Lee Anderson combined. I believe he spent the weekend trying to feed cat food to a woman that used to be on The Apprentice. I may have misunderstood the headline on a social media clip, but frankly, I doubt it. I would like to examine whether or not this works. That John Hayes bloke is on the list. Is he the one that Sir Edward Braverman accidentally sent the email to? I think Brendan Clark-Smith, inevitably. If Brendan Clark-Smith achieves the, frankly, unbelievable feat of making Jonathan Gullis look clever. which is remarkable, given that Jonathan Gullis achieves the frankly remarkable feat of making a watermelon look intelligent. So there's quite a little hierarchy of intellectual clout there. Also, what's the deputy chairman doing? Undermining the leadership in this way. The reason I'm just thinking out loud. 7 minutes after 11 is the time. I'm looking at the 12. I've got 10 of the 12. It goes up to 12 apparently, although it's perfectly possible they only got as far as 10 and then ran out of pencil. But I think this is the closest I've seen since Farage was in his pomp to a sort of explicit admission that you just don't like foreigners. Despite, in his case, of course, being married to one. Do you remember when he started talking about people speaking foreign on trains? And you'd sort of be like, well, how do you know it's not their first language? How do you know that they're not fluent in English as well? You know, what language does your wife? I remember asking, what language does your wife speak to your children at home? I presume it's German. And he said, do you know what he said? He said, well, I don't think they talk it on trains. I just thought, this man's absolutely ridiculous. But and then we'd sort of step back a bit. The referendum result went over the line, and we sort of stepped back a bit from the worst sort of demonisations, the worst sort of otherings. And now it's coming back. Some of the stuff here is grim. So this one here, raise the minimum combined income threshold for sponsoring a spouse and raise the minimum language requirement. So that's just cruel, isn't it? You fall in love with someone. We spoke to Amelia earlier. She had 10 words of English by her own account when she started here. Sleeping in a tent, went to work in the fields, the fruit fields of Herefordshire. Now she combines her work as an award-winning caterer. She came third, that's still an award, as an award-winning caterer with her work as a post person, a post woman. But she wouldn't have been allowed in at all with a higher minimum language requirement. I mean, hand on heart, would 30p Lee pass a rigorous language test, a rigorous English language test? And I think it's about £18,600 now that you have to provide evidence of income in order to bring your husband or your wife to this country. If you fell in love on holiday, well, even if you were British, that just looks cruel. We need to make it. You see, we just need to make it harder for foreigners to come here. It comes from a starting point, which, if you're generous, would be there are too many. There are genuinely too many. I've got no problem with any of them on a personal level, but there are just too many of them, to which the response would be 150,000 vacancies in hospitality, 165,000 vacancies in care. And this lot, the very first priority on this ridiculous little list is close the temporary schemes that grant eligibility for worker visas to care workers and senior care workers. So they've sat around a table, this lot. Miriam Cates, Lee Anderson, John Hayes, Brendan Clark-Smith. They've sat around a table and said, where should we go in first? We're going to try and throw some petrol upon those embers of the immigration conversation, right? Because it is, people are more worried about the cost of living. Nobody really thinks that their energy bill or their food prices are a consequence of the Polish fella living over the road anymore, in the way that they were persuaded to do similar in 2016. So we've got to get this going again, lads. They're sitting around the table, probably rubbing their thighs a bit. You know what they're like. We've got to get this going again. I hate them. Do you hate them? How much do you hate them? I really hate them. Oh, yeah, I really hate them. So who do you hate the most? Care workers. Pardon? Care workers. What? Yeah, I really hate the care. No, we're supposed to talk about feckless work-shy layabouts who come over here and claim benefits and send it all home at the same time. No. Care workers, they're the ones I really hate. Care, them in the homes, looking after the poorly and the sick and the people with dementia. Loads of them are foreign. I hate them, I do. I hate them. That's what's happened at this meeting. No one out of these 25 has sat around that table and gone, whoa, look, I hate foreigners as much as the next man, but we've got to portray them as feckless work-shy layabouts. We can't go after the care workers. Can we, lads? And all 25 of them have gone along with it. Yeah, let's go there. Let's go now. Right, point one. Close the temporary schemes that grant eligibility for worker visas to care workers and senior care workers. And that's incredible. Imagine if Farage's Nazi poster had people wearing the uniforms of care homes on it and said breaking point. I think that might even be worse, what this lot have announced. Close the... Oh, bloody care workers. I hates them, I do. I hates them. And these are the people that talk about others being out of touch.